Anniversaries, celebrations, and brand new number ones might be the name of the game, but Thanos gets the last laugh at the end of the universe. What's up, everybody? I'm Stan, and welcome to Detail Comics, where we go over comics in detail. This is Preview Picks, the show where I go over all the comic books coming out on Wednesday, give you an idea what they're all about, and whether there's something you should talk to your comic book shop about. Make sure you subscribe to get one of these every single Monday. The first book that I want to talk about is Champions number 19, which gets a brand new creative team, so Jim Zub is taking over the writing duties from Mark Waid, and Ironheart and Nadia Pym's Wasp are going to be added to the team as well. While you may not have been a fan of Champions, Champions was a relatively interesting book that was dealing with a lot of different social commentary, so it's been a really good read for a lot of people, but it might not necessarily be for everybody. However, if you're looking for a change in the lineup, this is going to be one to check out. Also, when we're talking about changes in the lineup, we need to talk about Titans number 22 from Dan Abnett, and what we're going to see is the kind of conclusion to this current Titans storyline, because we know there's going to be a big shift in the lineup, as well as how they're operating after the No Justice storyline, which begins in May. So Titans number 22 might be one of your last options to find out exactly what's happening with these characters and where they're going in the future. Heading over into independent books, we can talk about Versus number 3 with art by Asad Ribic, and again, this is a book that I've just been picking up because it's simply beautiful, and the storyline hasn't necessarily grabbed me, but it is something I'm sticking with because it has shown some signs of evolving into something that I can really appreciate. However, your mileage might vary when it comes to this book. You can't deny that it is a pretty fantastic looker, though. Making my way back over to Marvel, let's talk about Despicable Deadpool number 298, and I haven't really been reading The Merc with a Mouth. It's just not necessarily the book for me, or at least that's what I thought, but there's a lot of cameos and there's a lot of stuff that's been happening inside other books regarding Deadpool, which I've really found funny, and everybody says that Jerry Dugan's been writing a fantastic Deadpool, so it's something that I've got to go take a look at. 298 comes out and we're continuing along with his bucket list storyline. You know, the Marvel Universe tries to kill Deadpool is the theme of this one, I think, so with the upcoming movie, I'm going to be taking a look at it, and you might want to take a look at it too. Another book you might want to take a look at is Hal Jordan, the Green Lantern Corps number 42, which is actually tying into Dark Knight's Metal, which is a relative rarity for a lot of these books, and what we're going to be dealing with is Dark Stars. So Dark Stars isn't necessarily a widely known property, but it was definitely alluded to at the end of Dark Knight's Metal number 6, and one of those things where I love Easter eggs, I love diving into stuff and being like, oh, I found that, and it's just one of those things where I'm excited to see where this goes, just because of that. But overall, Green Lantern Corps has been a really solid book from Robert Venditti and the art teams that have really helped him out with that. I'm excited to see where this one goes. Over at Marvel, we have Doctor Strange number 388, which is going to be continuing on with the Damnation crossover and the event that they're really working into here. And Donny Cates doesn't really have many issues left on Doctor Strange, which I'm totally fine with. Damnation's been an okay event. It hasn't really grabbed me the way that I think that his individual storylines have, like his Thanos storyline and his original Doctor Strange storyline. It just feels like there's a few too many moving parts, and they're outlandish for being outlandish, but it's a book that I'm continuing to enjoy, just not necessarily to the level that I am his other work. But I'm going to be sticking this one out until the end. The main Damnation books are still things that I'm picking up because that's where the heart of the story is really happening. But back on the topic of interacting with DC's Dark Knight's Metal, we've got Wonder Woman number 44, which is concluding her storyline with Darkseid. We already know that Darkseid is going to be on Justice League Odyssey. We know that the Dark Gods are going to be playing a big role in Wonder Woman coming up, so this is going to be the conclusion, I think, to the story arc that they're currently telling before we get that revision going into the next generation of stories. I'm intrigued by this one because overall we have seen Darkseid grow from just his infant state to this current adult state, and then he's going to be a young adult inside Justice League and Odyssey, and I'm just not sure where this continuity kind of fits in, and as of right now, does continuity even matter inside DC? We don't necessarily know, but it's a good way to finish out the story arc, and while I haven't really been following along, I might go back and get the last 4 issues or so just to see where everything's going. However, a book that I have been following along with is Avengers, and Avengers 688 is going to be continuing on with the storyline, and they make the insinuation that somebody's going to be sacrificing everything for the rest of the team, which can only assume to be Quicksilver because he's on the cover, he's got Scarlet Witch, is going to be in a little Quicksilver miniseries, and all other kinds of stuff is going to be happening. I've been really kind of downhill on this since the Hulk wasn't there anymore, but, you know, you can't complain too much. I think that Avengers has been really strong towards the end of the series. This 15-part event is really a lot of heavy lifting that needs to be done by the writers and the art teams, so I'm excited to see where this one goes. If you want to check out the reviews that I've done on the other books, you can check them out on the card up in the corner that I'm going to post there, so that should start at 684 and take you all the way through until where we are now. Back on to some DC Dark Knight's Metal, let's talk about Sideways number 3, which is kind of getting into its own. Overall, it's got the most potential out of any of the storylines that are really be told out of DC's New Age of Heroes, which is is why I'm really excited about it. I think the character has a lot of developing he can do. I like the art from Kenneth Rocafort, even though he's only on for a few more issues, but the entire concept of a teenager with the ability to jump between the multiverses or to rip open space-time is exciting to me because there's so much room for exploration, so much room for development, and while, you know, a lot of people will draw parallels to Spider-Man, you know, a lot of great power and great responsibility talk needs to go on with this kid, I'm excited to see where he goes and how he can kind of develop and become his own person. That's why I say that Sideways has some of the greatest potential out of any of the DC New Age of heroes, and it's one of the books that I'm keeping my eye on. Another book I'm keeping my eye on is XMen Read number 3, which is one of my favorite X-Men books that is currently coming out. I love the team that's being led by Jean Grey, I like the addition of a lot of different characters, and we've been jumping back and forth between current day as well as previous things that have caused the formation of this team, and based on the cover right now, we've got Gambit that's going to be coming into the fray. The storyline might be a little on the nose with the whole Days of Hate thing, but it's, you know, it's a good write from Tom Taylor. It can be funny, it can be exciting, it can be really touching in a lot of different ways, and his whole goal is a lot more altruistic than a lot of different things. So I'm excited about X-Men Read. It's one of my favorite books ever since it came out. There is another book over at DC that is one of my favorite books since it came out, and that is Detective Comics, and Detective Comics 978 is starting to get close to the end. You know, James Tynion's only got 3 more issues, well, actually, after this one, yeah, 3 more issues. So he's got 978, which is coming out this week, and then 979, 980, and 981. 981 is going to be the breakup of this whole Bat team and the end of James Tynion IV's run, which has been stellar. There have been a few small storylines that haven't necessarily hit, but a lot of them have really kind of connected, especially when dealing with Tim Drake and the whole team aesthetic for Batman. I'm excited to see where Batman Eternal goes. The whole allegiance to the colony, the way that it's insinuating what's going to be happening in the future. It's a very exciting time to be reading DC Comics, specifically Detective, Batman, anything that you're really looking for inside those main storybooks. However, I don't know if any book's been quite as exciting as Thanos number 18, which is going to be coming out from Donny Cates and Geoff Shaw. Since they took over for Jeff Lemire with issue number 13, it has been non-stop action and chaos, and one of the things that I have appreciated the most. It's just absolute craziness. It might not necessarily make a lot of sense to a lot of different readers, but if you're just there for the spectacle, you're never going to be anything but wowed. And Geoff Shaw has refined his art style, and Donny Cates has really kind of stepped into his own, being this kind of agent of chaos amongst the Marvel Universe, which I'm really excited about, especially leading into another series that he's going to be kicking off. Actually, several different series he's going to be kicking off. It looks like Donny Cates really isn't going anywhere inside the Marvel stable, but Thanos number 18, that is going to be your conclusion to this story arc, and one that you shouldn't be missing. Bouncing back over to independent titles, let's talk about Gideon Falls number 2. So I did a review for Gideon Falls number 1, so that's something that you can actually check out if you want, but what I'm really excited about for this is the whole duality of the storyline. It feels like we're dealing with a parallel universe kind of situation, 2 people that are operating either in independent sides of the world or independent worlds entirely. It's Jeff Lemire's opportunity to take this kind of horror construct and the idea of this black barn and turn it on its ear and, you know, really tell that horror story. I'm excited to see where it goes because Jeff Lemire is one of my favorite writers. I think that he does phenomenal work, and I can't wait to see where this one goes, especially since he's teaming up with Andrea Sorrentino. It's just absolutely crazy. The art is beautiful, the story seems intriguing, I'm excited to see where it ends up. Of course, a major character that we are going to see where he ends up is Captain America, and Captain America number 700, this big anniversary issue for Captain America is happening this week, and he's in the future, but it's not necessarily the distant future, it's more the near future, but he's going to end up in the distant future, and then Mark Waid's run is going to end by July 4th, so whether you want to invest in the character or not, it is going to be issue number 700. It promises to be a relatively interesting spectacle. This conclusion should be something that's entertaining at least, but it seems like Mark Waid's run is kind of a placeholder until we get to something a little bit more new and rejuvenated, which is going to be Ta-Nehisi Coates' book starting July 4th. I'm going to be picking it up because Captain America has been, I wouldn't necessarily say amazing, but it has been refreshing ever since he took over. Not to say that Nick Spencer's run was particularly bad, but it's really hard to get invested in a character that you know is going to be completely rewritten, or at least start in a very different perspective in a few months. It's just like, oh, well, why don't I just wait for that? Which I'm sure a lot of you are kind of coming up with as far as your feelings are concerned, but hey, you know what? I'm going to buy it anyway. Of course, if you want to enjoy some legacy, you can go pick up the Action Comics 80 Years of Superman Action Comics hardcover. So this is going to be releasing this week, and that's kind of in place of the whole Action Comics book, because Action Comics 1000 is going to be coming out at a later date, where it's just got all these different stories and stuff like that. But this is just an absolutely bonkers collection of Superman stories over the last 80 years. So it's something I wouldn't necessarily pick up right now. It's not necessarily for me, but it's totally out there for you guys if you want to check it out. I mean, Action Comics has been it is the longest running comic book in the history of comic books, and the fact that Superman is, they're just taking all these superstar artists and writers and creators, combining all their best work and putting it into this hardcover so that way you have the history of Superman, a living collection of soups. But it's one of those things where I can't necessarily see it being something that's going to drive me to go grab it right now. Leaving Action Comics behind, let's talk about brand new number ones, and we've got Crude No. 1, which is from Steve Orlando, and that's telling a story of this kind of dude from Russia, and he's got all his family murdered. It seems like it's going to be an interesting kind of perspective, but Steve Orlando's been kind of hit or miss as far as his writing for me, especially since he took over Justice League of America. It's just one of those things where it might connect, it might not. Another Russian-themed book is Dead Hand No. 1, which is going to be from Kyle Higgins, I think it is, and this is dealing with a former Soviet-era spy or agent or something along those lines living in relatively modern times. And it's another thing where I think that Russia's a really interesting theme for people to kind of dig into. It's not something that I'm necessarily looking for from a comic book, but it's something I want to let you guys know about, and one that I'm going to thumb through once I get to the comic book shop. New number ones from Marvel include The Exiles, which is going to include the team of Blink, Khan, an older battle-hardened version of Kamala Khan. I think you've got Wolvie, which is like the tiny little animated Wolverine. You've got Iron Lad, which is kind of crazy. And then they just introduced that it's going to be Valkyrie, or at least a really similar iteration to Tessa Thompson's Valkyrie from Thor Ragnarok. So while it's not necessarily pulled directly from the MCU, this could be Ultimate Valkyrie. Maybe that's the thing that they're going for, because the MCU is so inspired by the Ultimate Universe, might as well grab Valkyrie from the Ultimate Universe and throw her in here too. Let's just call it that. But Exiles is interesting because it's the first real multiversal hopping book that they're going to be taking out here since like Spider-Verse. You know, like the whole Web Warriors kind of thing. I'm excited to see where this one goes because multiversal and cosmic things are some of my favorite things to explore just because there's so many different possibilities out there. That's half the reason that I think Marvel 2-in-1 is one of the best books in Marvel Comics, let alone comics in general. Also, new number ones from Marvel, we've got Domino No. 1, which is going to be written by Gail Simone, and it's going to be Domino. She's going to like have her powers, lose her powers, but Gail Simone writes a really interesting book from the start, so I'm excited to see what she can kind of put in here, what kind of humor she can add to things, what kind of action she writes. And Domino is a character that's, well, she's always been a part of this kind of X-Force, X-Men legacy for me, so I've got a soft spot for Domino in my heart. A book that I don't have a soft spot for and that I'm kind of hesitant about is Immortal Men number 1. So while DC's New Age of Heroes has brought me some very good books like Sideways, The Terrifics, even Damage, it hasn't necessarily connected with every single thing, and the fact that Immortal Men was delayed like 6 or 7 months really kind of has me worried, even though I love James Tynion as a writer and Jim Lee is fantastic on art. The problem is Jim Lee is only on art for one issue before we get into our brand new artist, and I'm not sure where the Immortal Men kind of connect. With this kind of time for development, it feels like you should have a really good handle on the story and this should knock me out of the park. It should be a home run. But I'm not going to be holding my breath anytime soon to see whether this is going to be a book that grabs me or just leaves me by the wayside. But I want to know what you guys think too, so hit me up in the comments down below and we can start that conversation. As always, if you like what you see, hit the like button. Don't forget to subscribe to get more news, reviews, and commentary on comic books, comic book movies, comic book TV shows and games, and anything and everything inside the world of comics.